We're going to come down onto our mats and use one block to come into a supported bridge. If you don't have a block, you can use books, you can use rolling some towels. You just want to get something that's not going to squish all the way down, so you can give yourself your hips a little height. So you roll down onto your back, feet are on the mat, knees are straight up. So I like the block on this medium height, right? It's flat, there's flat, medium, or tall. You can go any height that you like. Cushions you can lift up. You just want to be careful with the placement. So notice that your toes are straight forward, they're not way out to the sides like this. They're just heels coming right out of the sit bones, right? So your thighs are parallel, your knees are parallel, your toes are parallel. So you're going to tuck the shoulders underneath a little bit, push down into the feet, lift the hips, and then slide this block underneath the tail, right? Make sure that it's nice and low. It's not under the bendy part of the spine, right? It's not under the spine at all. It's underneath the hips. Tuck the shoulders underneath a little bit. You should be able to draw your ribs in without feeling the block in your lower back. It should be lower than that. So if it's under your lower back, just bring your feet in a little bit, lift the hips, and shimmy the block down. So it's underneath your sacrum, right? That triangular bone where the spine ends. Just give yourself a moment here. The heart has come over the head. The chest is broad. If this is a tough position for you, you can hold on to the mat, right? Give yourself a chance to get steady, to feel steady, to feel safe, like you're not going to tip. Maybe the palms turn up, maybe the palms turn down. Give ourselves a moment here. From here, we're going to take this upside down wash through the body a little bit deeper. So you're going to bring your knees up. And once you bring your knees up and your feet are off the mat, you're going to notice really if that block is in the right place. If it's not, drop it down, shift it around a little bit. Again, it's not under the spine, not under the low back, but under the hips. And then from here, you're going to lift the feet up towards the ceiling to give yourself more of a flush. Right? We're going to hold here for a bit. If you feel like you're gripping through the torso, through the low back, through the belly, through the legs, anywhere, you're going to bring your feet down and you're going to shift it around until you feel like you're steady, until you feel like you can be here without gripping, without being nervous, right? This is great for the nervous system to calm down. So if you're not calm and you're trying really hard to be here, maybe you shift the block. Maybe you just bring your feet down to the mat and you stay in that supported bridge. You still get the heart over the head. You're still getting a nice little flush, just not as intensely with the feet up, right? We don't want to go for intensity here over relaxation. We want relaxation to be first. Notice if the ribs are popped up, right? So there's all this tension in the middle part of the torso, which really corresponds to the tension in the lower back. You don't want that, right? Ribs sink down, lower back lengthens, and our feet are still lifted, or they've come down into supported bridge, your choice. And take 5 more breaths here. Last breath in and a breath out. Bend one knee at a time. Heel comes towards the butt. Feet come down to the mat. You're still on your block. Let yourself get rooted again. Now you can keep your block at the same height, or you can lower it down maybe one more level. You're going to straighten the legs again, but this time forward. And you're going to get a really big stretch in the front of your hips. So again, if the block isn't in the right place, right, if it's under the lower back, you're going to feel pinching. So you bend the knees again and shift the block. If it just feels like too much, you lower the block, right? If it's on the lowest height, you still want your hips to be lifted, so maybe you'll go one leg at a time, right? You're still gonna feel that really nice big stretch in the front of the hip, going one leg at a time. We'll hold for a little bit on each side. So 2 legs or one at a time. I'll let you know when it's halfway so you can switch legs. Maybe your eyes close. You start scanning the body. You can let your feet flop out, right? You can keep your toes pointed towards the ceiling, whichever one is better for you, whichever one feels right. But again, we're going more for relaxation and stretch and opening rather than tension and resisting the stretch, right? So if you're working really hard to be here in this position, you got to shift something so that it's a little bit easier. Scanning the body, letting go of extra tension. A few more breaths, just for this side, for those of us who are going one leg at a time. So if you've got one knee bent and one leg straight, switch to the other side. Bending the straight leg, straightening the bent leg, the bent knee. Let yourself wiggle around and find the right position for that straightened leg, right? Whether it's toes hanging out to the side or toes pointing up. Notice again if you're gripping the glutes, the lower back, the ribs, right? You want to let go there. Lengthen the lower back. You're using the prop of the block just to give you what your glutes would do, the work of pulling your legs behind your hips. If you were standing up, right, your feet would be lifting off the floor and pointing, like you're pointing your toes back behind you, like a ballerina, right? The leg moving back from the hips. But we're using the block so that the glutes don't have to work to pull that leg back, and we still get the stretch in the front of the hips. Long in the lower back. Closing the eyes again, deep breaths. Scanning the body and just feeling where you can let go of a little more tension. Five more deep, slow breaths. Last breath in. And a breath out. You're gonna slowly bend the knees. As the knees lift a little bit, feel that strength in the lower belly, right? Protecting the lower back. Step the feet back in, nice and slow. You're gonna feel a little more stretch, a little more lengthening in the lower back. Right? Bring your feet out wide. Let the knees turn in a little bit. It's easier to open up the lower back that way. Just give yourself a little more space there for a couple of breaths, just a couple of breaths. Bring your feet, heel toe your feet back to hip distance. And as you do that, bring the heels in a little bit. Right? Draw the tail towards the back of the knees. Feeling the frontal hip points lift a little bit. And you just stay on your block, but push your feet into the mat. And just find where your belly responds to that, right? There's a little more strength, because you want to protect your lower back as you lift the hips up. So take a breath, push into the feet, lift the hips, take the block out, Your hips are still lifted. Now your glutes are working, right, to lift the hips, to draw the tail back towards the back of the knees. Take a nice deep breath. And then roll down the spine, one vertebrae at a time. So the upper back comes down first, the middle back, and then the lower back, and then the tail. And feel the mat again, untuck the shoulders, lengthen the spine. Take a nice deep breath, and a breath out. So now you're going to draw the right knee into the chest, give it a squeeze. Feel that stretch in the low back. Move it around a little bit if you need to. So bring your left foot, just heel toe it in a little bit. You're going to cross the right thigh over the left. Fancy legs, right? Arms out to the side. Push into that left foot and shift the hips to the right a couple inches again. And then you're going to let those knees swing over to the left and stack the right hip on top of the left into a twist. So you're drawing long again through the low back. If you find your tail is reaching up and your low back is caving in, I want you to bring the ribs in, draw the tail towards that left heel towards the front of the mat, length through the sides of the waist, arms out like a T or like goalposts or like a diamond, or even this left hand can come to the outer right thigh and draw down. So it's a twist, but in the lower part of the spine. You can bring your head to the side too, looking over to the right. And give yourself a few breaths here. Shoulders away from the ears. Wringing the body out. 3 more deep breaths. Back in through the center. So you're going to lift the knees. Bring that left foot back onto the mat. Shift the hips back into the center. And drop the right foot back down. Even things out. Right? Lengthen the lower back. With the right foot down, you're just going to bring the left knee into the chest. Right? Lengthen through the spine. Shift the torso around so that you can feel the stretch around the glutes, around the low back. Soften in the inner hip. Right? Use your hands to draw the knee in and try to let go of those leg muscles that are pulling in. Give it another breath, move it around if you need to. And then your right foot is going to heel toe in a little bit towards the center or maybe even over towards the left. Your left thigh is going to cross on top of your right. And then as you push down into the right foot, you're going to lift the hips just a little bit to shift them to the left. Right hand can come to the left knee and then you draw into a twist. Keeping your ankle hooked or your thighs crossed, stacking your left hip as best you can over the right. Your arms can come out like a T, goalpost, diamond, or right hand on that knee. Draw the shoulders away from the ears. Draw the left sit bone towards the front of your mat, right? Maybe the heel of the hand comes to the crease of the thigh and you push away. You'll feel some length in the side of the waist. Wringing the body out. We're going to close our eyes and take some really nice deep breaths. Let's concentrate on the exhales to let some of that stuff go. Last breath in and a breath out. Bring the knees back up. Shift the left foot down onto the mat. Find center again with your feet down on the mat. Hips flat, Lengthen through the torso. Feet on the mat. Heel toe the feet apart from each other and just knock the knees back in. TP the knees. Releasing the lower back. And starting to relax.